it's Robin here. It's Easter Friday, so happy Easter to everybody. Um, so today I thought I'd like to talk about animals and animals in spirit. Can you see them? Some people can. I've seen as a child the ghost of a dog I had prior, and can they come through to talk to you or help you with things? Yes, they can. That's been my experience, and I have experienced that for other people. Okay, so I can just tell you about some of my experiences. So, like I said, as a child, I can remember seeing this ghost dog down at the bottom of my bedroom door, and of course, back then I was terrified. Ran into my mum's and dad's bed and jumped in between them. So that was my sort of first real memory. But as I've gotten older and I'm sort of now tuned into spirit and what things mean, which really took a good 23 to 25 years to understand, I remember going to see this healer myself, and she said to me that I was surrounded by horses, and I thought, right, because my father used to breed horses, but naturally in that process, the ones they don't use to, put on the track or breed with, they take to the glue factory. So, of course, as a child, I've always loved animals and been very upset when I think of animals passing. So apparently these animals that passed, these horses, stayed around me, which was really no surprise. In fact, we did have one stallion that Dad used to breed with. He was a stallion from America that had come over to Australia, and his name was Trader Nardine. Anyway, of course, Dad bred with him, and I think he was 21 when we got him, so he's an old horse, but Dad still used him for a couple of years. Anyway, when he passed, my sisters and I, who were, probably about, 15, 13 and 12, roughly, went to say goodbye to him, and the horse looked up, Trader, and he neighed goodbye to us. I knew that's what it was, and of course I burst out crying and was just completely devastated. But that was my first experience of basically knowing what that horse was saying, Anyway, so we go on from there, and I just used to notice, before I knew what I knew, that animals would just be drawn to me, my healing energy. And, we had this cat across the road, and of course it was a scary cat, not a friendly cat, wild. And I noticed it got hit on the face by something, and it came into my yard and went straight up to my hands. And I was like sort of shocked, thinking, oh my God. So I just sort of sat there and held my hands out. So that animals instinctively know, and cats particularly actually trigger healing energies in our own bodies. So they will sit on parts of our bodies that need healing. They also will sit in parts of the house that need clearing if there's negative energy around. They, of course, like dogs, can see spirit. So when they're looking at something, there's usually something there. So what else? Oh, I can remember when I was a child. Well, not a child. When I was early 20s, 19, 20, going to this fish farm in Australia. I think it was, tuna or whatever it was. This fish was huge. It was in like a big water tank. And I looked in the tank, and the feeling I picked up straight away was just obviously pain, because as big as the tank was, the fish only had, it was bigger than a person, only had enough room to move around. And I just completely cracked. I burst out crying, and I didn't understand that I was actually picking up the feelings of that animal. Also, this happened to me one time in Queensland at SeaWorld, or whatever they call it. This dolphin, somehow I came eye to eye with this dolphin, and immediately it was like an energetic electrical connection, and I looked into that eye, and it just seemed like it was way more intelligent than a human. And I have to say that completely shocked me also. And like I say, this is before I sort of really knew what I was, I could tune into. Another time went to a park at Dubbo in Australia, and there was this big Galapagos turtle, huge, and I was getting told to put my hands out to send it some energy, right? And I'm like, the logical part of the brain is going, no, I'm not doing that. And I was, was persisting. And the poor little, little, it's huge, they're, 100 years old or whatever, started to come across to me. And I actually have a photo of that on my Facebook page, on my tarot page, in the photo albums. Yeah, so animals are very aware of your energy. They will let you come up to them. Or I had a girlfriend's dog that had a tumour in its bum, and I went there one day and it just plopped its big bottom in my hands, and I'm saying, Di, what's your dog doing? She said, oh, he's got cysts in his bottom or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I realised what the dog was doing. But it's just funny because you yourself as an empath, healer, whatever, when you understand these things, you understand why animals behave the way they do. But before you're really conscious of this, you're like, what's going on here? Anyway, so I have had spirit come through, as in animals, live and past, which is interesting. I remember a dog that looked like my ex-husband's dog, who was a dog I absolutely loved, right? So, huge, big, what do they call it? Looks a bit like a tiger in terms of the colour. Anyway, it came into my dream, and at first I thought, oh no, that's this other dog I know. And then I realised later it wasn't, because I'd then gone to the pool with my girls, sitting there. I was doing some study while the kids were, flopping around in the water, and I ended up being pulled to this girl, talking to her. She'd lost a baby on the other side, and she'd had a child taken off of her. So when we were talking, this was her dog, and her dog was alive, and it sleeps with her every night, and blah blah blah. So that was interesting, that the dog came to me soul-wise to get my attention, to bring that up into conversation with this girl. So for me, that was very interesting, Anyway, so I have had experiences also where, I've done healing work on people, and I've seen an animal that's been something they had as a child. That I've also had a dog I had for years. And I used to call him Houdini because he used to just get out constantly, to the point that I just couldn't do any more to keep him in. He ran around the corner and set up house with this other little dog, and I think, as the story goes, they had puppies. So in the dream state, I'm calling to him and I'm wanting to find him. And in the dream state, he basically looked at me and growled and said, I'm here for the lady of the house. Now, I don't know whether the lady of the house was the dog or the owner of the house, but basically what the message was is, I'm okay, leave me alone, and I thought, oh, okay, fine, because he was 7 before he ran away. So, it was just interesting that I had that response, which at first I thought, oh, well, that's not good. And then I realised, well, like us, animals, so I've been told by a healer that I spent 10 years with, working on me, said that animals like us choose their life, choose how they pass. So if you think of it that way, then I suppose you've got animals that suffer like humans, and you've got animals that live in kingdoms, with more than they need, and so forth, and all in between. So that was very interesting. Now, another lady who I know from America had a situation with a dog that she had died, and she was not sure how she'd passed. And I was picking up the dog, like, I can physically feel the dog, I could feel it on me in bed, and I'm like, what the? And I just instinctively knew it was a dog. Anyway, so of course that morning I'm in the kitchen and I'm looking through, making a coffee, and I'm just really looking at this bowl of sugar. And I'm thinking, why am I looking at this bowl of sugar? I can't understand why I'm focusing on this sugar. Anyway, when I ended up talking to her, her dog's name was Sugar. So then the information came through. Once I'd connected to, so she, the dog, wanted obviously her mum to know that she was okay. So she knew me being, a medium here, who would talk to her, would get the message through. So the dog came through, she was okay, she died of natural causes, nothing to worry about, etc. So, that was really interesting, but, and that, as a psychic empath, or even as someone who's very open and might see something that sticks out. Like as a psychic now, I'm noticing that when you're meant to notice something, it really sticks out brightly, you know, and you're like, why am I looking at that, or why am I reading that? You know, there's just a knowing that when you're doing it, it's got more, it means more, you know. So that was really interesting. And I actually have an old lady friend that she was in a home, so it was my daughter's grandma, and she's in a home, and she says to me, you know what? She said, I won't tell anyone else this, but she said, I was lying in bed and she had a bad back, and she said her dog came and jumped on her a couple of times in a certain fashion, and she said, and her back was fine. And she said, I believe that dog healed me. And I said, she said, I wouldn't tell anyone else, but I'll tell you. And I thought, yeah, she probably did. You know, so animals are horses particularly are very good with healing people. Cats also, like I said, they know when there's negative energies around and they'll try and clear it. Dogs also, they see spirit, and it's funny because when I first moved into the house I live in now, which is, you know, like a tin shack, but anyway, which was going to be a stepping stone, but I'm still here 30 years later. The first partner I had when I moved in here used to say to me, do you notice that every time you go to the toilet, the dog goes round to the toilet window? And I'm like, no, I've never noticed that. Anyway, so what it was is there were 3 ghosts in my house. 2 women who hated children and a man that was trying to protect me from these 2 women. So you will have situations where you have, you know, a presence in your house, and you'll have maybe a negative and a positive one there trying to look after you at the same time as the negative one's trying to, you know, muck up things. Anyway, so the reason I believe now why he used to go around to the bathroom window was because in the bath one of the women had died. So I would sit in the bath and feel completely depressed. I'd cry, etc. But I was actually venting the lady that had died in the bath. And there was another situation where I'd put my kids in the bath for a second, walked into the kitchen, was right next door with an open door, like you can see, and next minute they're flopping around there almost drowning. So I sort of suspect that this energy was trying to snuff out the kids because she didn't like children. Apparently this woman was an alcoholic who, her and her sister, who, like I said, hated children. So they were spinsters, and, you know, I suppose they were just a bit, you know, miffed at life. But yeah, that was very interesting. So yes, you know, animals come through. They can do a lot of healing on us. Oh yeah, and you know, things like when animals choose how they pass, for example, sometimes like in life with human connections, if it's too much for the person to bear, this is why you get a lot of animals that'll go off and die somewhere out of sight. I know when my 17.5-year-old Chihuahua slash whatever he was half and half of whatever, he didn't want me because I could, you know, I understood my channeling at the time. I put him in a little basket next to the lounge, and I was lying there with my arm over the side into the basket, and I was getting, he doesn't want to die in the same room as you because he didn't want to upset me. So the poor little sausage had got out of the basket and managed to get into the kitchen, so the next room, and I got up to go to the toilet, and here he is on the floor, sort of basically going through his last motions. So I thought, picked him up and let him pass in my arms, you know, because I thought, no, it's not going to worry me. I want him to pass over happy, and you know, so yeah, so, but, you know, these things happen, you know, if a person is so connected and close to an animal and they don't want that person to suffer, sometimes they will actually either run away or you know, it just won't be in front of that person. So, you know, it's so interesting, but animals are beautiful, you know, naturally they're angels, just like humans can be angels. Animals can be sent down as ascended beings also, you know, to help us. The current little pup I have at the moment, he's 7 now, and my kids had moved off to university, and honest, if I hadn't had him, I don't know what I would have done, you know. He filled my life with joy. Even my language changed, you know. So as much as they can be a pain in the bum sometimes, And I have to say, when I was in Adelaide for one trip, the lady that gave him to me is in spirit now, and she's a beautiful, wonderful lady who was a healer and, you know, very connected to spirit also, as was her mother, who was a teacher of mine for many years. Anyway, you know the scenario where you think the kid's with one person and that person thinks the kid's with you? Well, that's what was happening with Zibby. I thought he was with my daughter, my daughter thought he was with me, and apparently he was out trotting around Adelaide near a really busy street, and he's not actually savvy with roads and stuff. He's an inside dog. So my other daughter, who was tossing up whether to come and visit or not, and she's very psychic and open, all of a sudden just really had this urge, yep, I will go to visit my sister because I was staying there with my daughter. So apparently driving over, she sees Zibby, my dog, and goes, oh my God. So here she is, you know, not like something she'd see, you know, here's this dog from Broken Hill trotting around this other, you know, city, and gets him in the car and walks in and says, have you lost something, you know? So this is how spirit works. No doubt, absolutely no doubt, my friend on the other side was making sure my daughter tuned in, picked up the message to go, saw him right at the right moment, picked him up to bring him home. So, you know, it's just amazing. But yeah, so I just thought I'd share some of that with you. If you've got any stories or anything, send a message to the tarot page, or if people have anything they want to talk about, send a message with some, you know, suggestions on things you'd like me to talk about. And yeah, have a great day. Bye.